Billionaire discovered Maid studying in secret. His touching words transformed her life forever. Maria wiped the sweat from her brow as she scrubbed the marble floors of a lavish mansion, the type of place where dreams felt like polished granite, beautiful but cold. Each stroke of her mop was a reminder of her exhaustion, but with every sweep, her determination grew. She had dreams beyond these four walls. Her son, Diego, sparkled bright in her mind like the morning sun. He deserved a better life, and with nights full of textbooks and relentless studying, she was determined to become a nurse, but days were hard. The bills piled up like unwanted guests, leaving no space for optimism. Maria felt the weight on her chest, a tightness that only eased when she thought of Diego, who needed her to be strong. They lived in modest conditions, their home slightly run down, but her heart overflowed with love for her little boy. She squeezed her eyes shut and whispered a prayer, desperate for a lift from this daily grind. Across town, Thomas stood at the top of a tower of success, but beneath the glitz of wealth, he felt empty. While he had everything: luxury cars, high-rise offices, and latest gadgets, he missed the warmth of genuine connection. He was trapped in a world of numbers and profits, a life so different from the one Maria struggled through. Little did he know, fate was about to intertwine their lives. When Thomas hired Maria to clean his sprawling home, he expected routine efficiency, but he soon found something beautifully human in her. He couldn't help but notice the flickering light in the kitchen during late hours, illuminating her bent figure over textbooks, a vision of resilience cradled by the dim glow. Admiration bubbled within him, and during their breaks, he initiated conversations, feeling as if he were unveiling a hidden treasure with every word. Maria's spirit was magnetic, her laughter infectious. She shared dreams that warmed his heart and made his world feel whole. But then, the darkness struck. Maria received a call from back home. Her mother was gravely ill. The news crushed her, every bill, every worry, towering over her like a mountain. She felt small and inadequate, just a drop in an endless ocean of despair. As she sat on her worn couch struggling with feelings of defeat, Thomas sensed something was off. He couldn't shake the thought that Maria was at a breaking point, and the urge to help her grew stronger. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That night, as the rain pattered against the windows, bringing forth an eerie calm, Maria's spirit wavered. She thought of dropping her studies, they felt far-fetched now. Just as she was about to surrender her dreams, a knock echoed through her tiny home. It was Thomas, standing there soaked but determined. In a rush of heartfelt conversation, he spoke words that dripped with sincerity. He admired her strength and passion, urging her not to lose sight of her dreams. In that moment, Maria felt something stir within her. Her heart raced, and for the first time in a long while, possibility fluttered in her chest. Thomas's words pulled it from the depths of doubt. Could she dare to believe again? As he prepared to speak at a charity gala, the weight of his hidden truth pressed heavily on his shoulders. Would he stand up for her? Could he use his influence to bridge the gap between their worlds? Their eyes locked, a silent understanding passed between them. The stakes had been raised, and change hung in the air, ready to either soar or shatter. The following day brought an unexpected adrenaline rush for both Maria and Thomas. The gala was only hours away, and excitement electrified the air. The sun poured into Maria's kitchen, amplifying the clutter of textbooks scattered across her table. She had barely slept, mingling dreams about her mother's health with wild thoughts of the evening ahead. What if Thomas spoke about her? She'd seen glimpses of her past, her days spent at the community center, helping others, and dreaming about helping even more as a nurse. Each memory felt fatalistic against the heavy backdrop of uncertainty swirling in her mind. Yet, there was something new now, a flicker of hope ignited by Thomas's encouragement. Meanwhile, Thomas's heart raced as he donned a tailored tuxedo, trying to mask the anxiety creeping in. Would he honor Maria, or was it just naive idealism? His reflection stared back, the handsome billionaire battling internal fears, worried that revealing his support for her dreams might expose him to judgment in a world that didn't see past wealth. But what mattered more, people's opinions or helping someone break their chains? As he entered the upscale venue, laughter and chatter filled the air, but the ambience did little to lift his doubts. He hadn't spoken about Maria to anyone, yet she sat heavy on his mind. Would it matter, he wondered, if he chose to speak about her? Would that connection be understood, or would others cast it aside as a fleeting charity? Meanwhile, Maria paced her small living room, dressed in a simple but elegant dress that hugged her curves just right. She had given Diego a quick kiss before leaving, assuring him that everything would be all right. The words escaped her lips, but the weight of certainty didn't follow. The gala felt like another world, a realm she didn't belong to. Yet, Thomas's belief in her served as a small balm, a reminder that her dreams weren't just figments of imagination. As the evening progressed, the air was thick with anticipation. Thomas made his way to the podium, heart pounding like a drum. He could see the faces of influential people staring expectantly back at him. His gaze swept across the crowd until it spotted Maria, standing at the far corner, her eyes wide and nervous. She was like a beacon in a sea of contrast. He was ready to plunge into the depths of vulnerability. Tonight, we celebrate not just the generosity of our community, but the bravery of individuals who strive to make a difference, he began, the microphone steady in his hand. I want to share a story about someone who represents what this charity stands for. Someone who is fighting against the odds, and whose courage I truly admire. Maria's breath hitched. He was talking about her. Heart racing, she felt a rush of warmth spreading through her. I've come to know Maria, a remarkable woman who works tirelessly to care for her family while pursuing her dreams of becoming a nurse. She does this not just for herself, but for her son, Diego, Thomas continued, his voice rich with emotion. The room began to murmur, glances exchanged among the guests as interest peaked. She felt a swell of pride, but with it came a wave of vulnerability. How would they react to her truth? Thomas didn't stop. I believe that with a little help, we can change lives. Let's support Maria together. As applause erupted, Maria stood frozen, emotions swirling inside her. It was more than she had ever expected. In that moment, the audience's cheers filled her with a sense of possibility, but also, a creeping fear rose within her. What if the world learned about her struggles? She could feel the whispers around her. But in that sea of chatter, one voice, one familiar voice, cut through the noise. It was Thomas's. His eyes locked onto hers, radiating support and understanding. Would this night be the bridge she needed to soar, or would it become another weight to carry? As the gala pressed forward, both their paths lay tangled. Secrets could either bind them together or rip them apart. What would tomorrow bring? The applause echoed like thunder in Maria's ears, drowning out the whispers that floated around the room. Every clap seemed to push her higher, but the weight of exposure pulled her down. She felt her knees wobble, everything becoming surreal. The weight of Thomas's words ignited a flame of hope, yet it also exposed the raw vulnerability of her life, laid bare before strangers. She glanced around the room, faces mapped out in various shades of curiosity. Some wore expressions of admiration, while others seemed skeptical. One woman whispered to her friend, eyes narrowed in judgment. It stung. Maria's chest tightened. Thomas stepped back from the podium, and the applause faded into a hum. He walked towards her, determination carving his brow. As he approached, the world around Maria sharpened. His strong presence drew her in like a lighthouse guiding a lost ship. Maria, he said softly, leaning slightly closer so only she could hear. You have to know how incredibly brave you are. They are captivated by your story, by you. But what if they don't see the real me? Maria's voice quivered. What if they only see just a charity case? The vulnerability she feared trickled through her words, her heart racing at the possibility. They LLC you, he insisted, sincerity etched into every syllable. And that matters. You deserve this recognition. He stepped back, searching her eyes, anchoring her in that moment. Believe in what you can do, not just what they think. With a small nod, Maria fought against insecurity, but the gravity of her hope still weighed heavily. Could she really dare to embrace this? Could this be the moment that turned the tide for her and Diego? Across the room, the Charity's board members began discussing the evening's success, the unspoken pressure hovering in the air. They started pointing out potential pledges, nodding at each other approvingly. Maria felt a flutter of anxiety as she overheard snippets of conversation. She'll draw a lot of attention. No doubt it'll swell our fundraising efforts. And just like that, Maria sensed her story shifting into a tool for charity rather than a personal triumph. Would this help her fulfill her dreams, or would it shape her future into something she couldn't control? Hey! Don't forget to meet the foundation's leaders, Thomas reminded her, pulling her from her thoughts. This is your chance. He grabbed her hand gently, and as his warm grip closed around her fingers, a jolt of courage surged through her. As they mingled through the crowd, Maria felt hearts opening to her, some filled with genuine interest, others with mere curiosity. I appreciate your support, Thomas, Maria said, finding reassurance in his presence. But part of me I just can't help but worry about the future. I know, he replied, his voice softening. And it's okay to be scared. But keep focusing on your strength. Don't let doubt shadow your courage. They approached a small group of influential donors, and as introductions started, Maria's heart raced again. She had to fight against the urge to retreat. Thomas's hand still held hers, a lifeline in a turbulent sea of change. Maria, one of the women said with a bright smile. It's such a pleasure to finally meet you. Thomas has shared so much about you. In that moment, she found herself locked in conversation. As they exchanged pleasantries, the tension in her chest began to ease. There was warmth in their voices, genuine interest. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the turning point she'd been yearning for. Moments drifted into conversations, and Maria gradually let her walls down. She saw each smile, each nod of encouragement as a brick removed from the barriers she had erected so carefully. Her journey felt less solitary, a shared narrative interwoven with the hopes of those around her, but while the crowd embraced her narrative, doubts began to swirl again. As the voices grew brighter, a shadow whispered behind her, will they remember you once the night fades? Thomas caught her lingering gaze and smiled, sensing the storm of thoughts she was battling. Together, he mouthed quietly, a promise etched between them, yet as the night stretched on, uncertainties flickered again. Would this connection sustain them through intricate paths tied to shared dreams, or would tomorrow uncover hidden fissures threatening to fracture their newfound bond? Unbeknownst to them, the night was still harboring secrets that could alter everything. As the gala continued, two separate journeys were unfolding. Would they leap into the unknown, or would past fears weigh them down? The night was just beginning. As evening deepened into night, the buzz of laughter and music filled the elegant hall, intertwining with the charming aroma of gourmet treats. Maria stood at the edge of the gathering, still clutching Thomas's hand. She felt a strange mix of exhilaration and trepidation swirling within her. Igniting her aspirations felt possible, yet the shadows of doubt clung tight. Listen to this one, Thomas gestured towards a couple nearby, their laughter booming across the room. It's magical how you can feel both nervous and alive at the same time, isn't it? She glanced at him, surprised by the insight. He seemed to navigate the undercurrents of social pressure with ease. Do you ever get scared? She asked, her voice barely a whisper beneath the chatter. All of a sudden, the laughter of others felt intrusive, as though it was mocking her uncertainties. Every day, he confessed, eyes locking onto hers with unwavering honesty. But you learn to harness that fear. When you open up, when you let people in, it can lead to unexpected connections. Maria's heart kicked in her chest. She had seen glimpses of that connection so far tonight, but was she truly ready to step into it completely? The moment hung between them like a fragile bubble, waiting to burst or rise. The urge to retreat churned in her gut, but she pushed it away. She believed in the warmth of Thomas's words, in the way he pulled her into a shared journey. "Come on," he said, drawing her toward a small group engaged in animated discussion. "These folks will want to hear your story." As they approached, a kindly older woman turned, her expression softening upon seeing Maria. "You must be the inspiring woman we've been hearing about." Maria felt her face heat, the weight of the attention pulling on her nerves. Thank you. I'm just doing what I can to help my brother." "Family means everything," the woman said, her eyes sparkling with understanding. "And I admire your strength. It takes a lot to be vulnerable." As the conversation flowed, something within Maria shifted. She found herself sharing more than just her struggles. She spoke of dreams, the care she'd poured into Diego's recovery, the long nights spent studying, balancing hope with overwhelming fears. Each word seemed to dissolve the barriers she had erected, transforming her vulnerability into something powerful. The nods of encouragement from strangers felt like a soft blanket wrapped around her. Every smile ignited warmth in her chest. Yet, in the depths of her heart, a question loomed ominously: would this acceptance last beyond tonight? Were they truly interested in her, or was it merely an infatuation with the story she represented? As laughter echoed and glasses clinked, the subject shifted, and Maria found herself being asked questions about her life, her aspirations. Despite the swirling doubts, this was exactly where she wanted to be. Then, in the midst of an enthusiastic exchange, a voice cut through the revelry. "She shouldn't be here," a sharp tone proclaimed, and Maria felt the chill wash over her, leaving her exposed. It was the woman she had caught whispering earlier, her skeptics piercing through the bubble of warmth. Maria's stomach dropped, her mind racing. Was she just a charity case after all, a spectacle that sparked shallow curiosity? "Excuse me?" Thomas stepped forward, protectiveness in his stance. "That's not true. Maria's journey is legitimate and beautiful, filled with courage." The clear edge in his voice rippled through her. How could someone believe in her so fiercely? "Let us not judge without knowing." He turned back to the group, resolve shining bright in his eyes. "This moment is about lifting each other, not tearing down." Maria blinked back tears of gratitude, feeling buoyed by his support. In that instant, she realized it would take this kind of bravery not just from her, but from those around her to forge the connections she hoped for. But as the shadow of the woman's words lingered, and the crowd continued mingling, Maria felt a new battle brew inside her. Was she brave enough to confront that judgment? And the fear of being seen as merely a charity case? The answer hinted at an awakening, one that could bring clarity or chaos, depending on how she chose to embrace her truth. As the night pressed on with its unrelenting flow of conversations and clinking glasses, Maria's journey teetered between the possibility of empowerment and the threat of self-doubt. Could she rise above it all, or would those critical whispers haunt her steps going forward? The night waited with bated breath, poised on the edge of revelation. The atmosphere shifted suddenly, like a vibrant painting suddenly smudged with gray. Maria's heart raced, a rhythmic pounding filled her ears. The warmth from earlier felt distant now, replaced by an icy grip of embarrassment. She was no stranger to whispers and sideways glances, but this was different. In a place that felt safe moments before, doubt swirled like an unwelcome ghost. Thomas stood firm, a shield between her and spectators' judgment. His voice remained strong, but she could see the subtle crease of concern on his brow. The conversation around them dimmed, all eyes darting toward the scene unfolding before them. "Maria, breathe," he murmured softly, as if sensing the whirlwind inside her. The familiarity of his presence grounded her, if only for a moment. Regardless, the judgment lingered, like an anchor dragging her deeper into uncertainty. What if they all saw her as that woman had? Just someone to pity? She stepped back, wrestling with an instinctual desire to disappear. But then, a soft voice cut through the tension. A younger man, perhaps in his 20s, spoke up. "Hey, everyone has a story. We should celebrate hers, especially if it's touched so many." The word struck Maria deeply. They echoed against the walls of doubt that threatened to overwhelm her. For a moment, she saw not just herself but everyone who might have felt alone in their journey. Thomas turned, nodding appreciatively at the young man. "Exactly. We're not here to tear each other down. We should lift each other up. I was in her shoes once. Everybody has a life behind those eyes. So much in such few words." Maria felt her breath even out, a determined spark ignited within her. Whispered judgments could not define her. Maybe she had enough courage to step forward, to reclaim her story. "Thank you," she said aloud, her voice steady, surprising even herself. "I'm not perfect. I'm just a woman trying to make a difference for someone I love." In that moment, decisions crystallized in her mind. She wouldn't run away from the challenge of sharing who she was. The older woman who had first approached her now smiled, her expression transformed. "Exactly. And it's your love that's brave, Maria. That's what makes a real story." The crowd slowly turned, shifting from whispers to nods. The laughter returned, organically this time, a bubbling warmth sweeping like sunshine after a storm. A small part of her felt liberated, flying above the weight of insecurity. Still, lurking in the back of her mind was the same thought that had haunted her before: did they see her, or just the idea of her? It troubled her, but she realized, perhaps this was the essence of connection, to be vulnerable in a room full of people. Then she caught Thomas's gaze, his pride and belief in her wrapped around her like armor. "Let us keep talking," he urged, drawing her deeper into the conversation. She took a breath and shared more details about Diego, his laughter, his strength, the love that fueled her determination. Each word freed her, like weight dropping from her shoulders. Just as the group began to truly engage, another voice piped in, sharper than before. "You'll burn out with that kind of thinking. Maybe you should rethink your priorities." The shadow returned, heavy with foreboding. Maria's heart sank at the notion of reconsideration. It didn't just state doubt, it challenged everything she was building tonight, but she felt Thomas beside her, an unspoken promise of solidarity. What if we're brave enough to confront the obstacles? What if that's where the real transformation begins? She wondered, her grip on the moment tightening. Choices loomed in the depths of her heart. Would she stand firmly in her truth despite the judgments, all of them, past or present? Or would the words from the skeptics fade her resolve? The night sparked on, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and shadows waiting to darken her spirit. But the more she stood, the more she realized the light of hope was still flickering at the edge of uncertainty. The voices around her faded, leaving just the hum of possibilities. Would she embrace the strength within her, or would doubt whisper too loudly? The night held its breath, waiting for her answer. Maria felt the weight of that sharp voice hanging in the air like mist. An unwelcome chill crept back into her heart. She took a small breath, pushing the doubt aside. Thomas's presence flickered like a candle's flame, warding off the encroaching gloom. "Let us not go there," she replied, her voice firm enough to hold the ground she stood on. Another woman, a bit older, chimed in. "No one really knows what another person is going through. We shouldn't belittle anyone's journey." Her defense felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, keeping Maria's head above the surface. The room shifted again. Whispers softened, and nods of agreement rippled through the group. It was incredible to see how quickly the mood changed, how people rallied when heart was at stake. She glanced around, meeting their eyes, and felt a flicker of warmth igniting once more in her chest. "Thank you," she said to the woman, gratitude pouring out like sunlight breaking through scattered clouds. I think it's so important to share, and not just about the good stuff. We all have our battles. Exactly, Thomas added, injecting enthusiasm. We're all in this together, each one of us carrying a piece of the struggle. Sharing binds us. That idea settled deeply in Maria's heart. She realized now that her worries couldn't take away from the strength gained in honesty. The crowd had become part of a new narrative, one where understanding and vulnerability formed a bridge instead of walls. But just then, the earlier skepticism taunted her thoughts again. In a moment of reflection, she recalled the faces of friends who had turned away, the ones who couldn't see her pain but rather her struggles. Would they see this moment as growth? Or would they still view her as someone who had failed? The realization struck her, those judgments had no power over her unless she let them. She had power. Her story mattered, filled with love and struggle like everyone else's. So what do you all think? She continued, heart pounding but resolute. If I want to fight for Diego, I have to fight for myself too, don't I? What can we learn from our struggles? A ripple of contemplation flowed through the crowd. Maria saw heads nodding, as if people were weighing her words. It felt like a collective sigh of relief, a moment where everyone could breathe a little easier knowing they weren't alone in their imperfections. I think transforming struggle into something beautiful is the hardest yet most rewarding path, another voice spoke up, a man with a gentle demeanor who had been listening intently. Every struggle, if embraced, can become a stepping stone to greatness. Maria felt the energy shift again, a buzzing current of hope mingled with the realness of shared experiences. She returned her focus, the intense gaze of Thomas was her anchor, backing her unyielding determination with silent support. That moment of connection blossomed, echoing with potent promises of change and solidarity. For the first time, Maria felt a deeper understanding of sharing beyond mere words to a bonding that parsed through pain into purpose. But just as excitement filled the air, the night's ambience shifted again. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows on the walls, and she sensed a sudden drop in temperature in the atmosphere. The laughter dwindled to nervous glances, as another figure stepped forward, their expression unreadable. What are you trying to do here? Inspire people? You think you can just mix your pain with someone else's pity and call it a story? A sharp gasp swept through the crowd, tension tightening like a noose around the room. Maria's heart raced again, fear rising, but somewhere in her mind, the flame of hope flared defiantly. What would she choose next? Stand her ground against this new wave of criticism or let it carry her away? The choice was hers, and with the crowd holding its breath, so was their future. Maria's mind whirled as she faced the voice of doubt. The figure standing before her, cloaked in skepticism, seemed to suck the warmth from the room. She felt a twinge in her stomach. Did they truly think her pain was mere theatrics, a way to garner sympathy? The silence hung heavy, each second stretching taut like a tightrope. Why are you here? The stranger continued, eyes narrowing, relentless. You want to share your sad little tale, but what will that change? You don't think people really care, do you? The sharpness of his words felt like daggers piercing through her resolve. But instead of retreating, a fire ignited inside her, a defiance she hadn't known existed. She straightened her back, squared her shoulders, and took a step forward. I'm here because I believe our stories matter, she replied, her voice clearer now. I believe that sharing our pain can form a community, one where we don't suffer alone, where we uplift each other. We're not looking for pity, we're looking for understanding and connection. Her words echoed in the stillness, and she could feel the crowd lean in, hanging on to every word. The doubt hanging in the air wavered, slowly dissipating like fog in the sunlight. Don't you understand? A woman from the back spoke up, voice steady and strong. Every story matters. Every struggle is valid. This isn't about the approval of outsiders, it's about empowering ourselves and each other. Heads nodded, and murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, forming a sound wave of solidarity. Maria's heart lifted at the unity forming around her. The warmth returned, bolstered by shared stories and unspoken promises. As she glanced back at the man, who now stood somewhat taken aback, she felt a rush of confidence surging through her veins. "You're right, some may not care," she stated softly. "But it only takes a few to create change. I may be just one person, but I refuse to stay silent." At her words, the crowd erupted in a swell of applause. It was rhythmic, it pulsed with hope and affirmation. A bond formed in that moment, stitching hearts together through the shared fabric of their struggles. Thomas moved closer, his presence a protective shield around her as he placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The warmth radiated, and Maria smiled, finding strength in his support. The contrast between their kindness and the man's bitterness could not have been clearer, but deep down, she felt unease stir. How long could this moment last? Would someone else step forward and sow discord again? Still, she pushed the thoughts aside. She refused to be distracted by negativity. "It's time to let our stories breathe," Thomas spoke, his voice cutting through the tension that still lingered in the air. "Stand up if you're ready to share." One by one, people began to rise, their faces reflecting the courage that came with vulnerability. Each new voice added another layer to the tapestry of their gathering, each story weaving resilience where once there was doubt. But when Maria turned to the man who had cast shadows on their gathering, she expected a quiet retreat. Instead, he stood his ground, the storm still raging behind his eyes. What happens when these stories end? What happens when it gets too real? He challenged, a frown creasing his forehead, as if he feared the truth would swallow them all. His question hung in the air, heavy and potent. Uncertainty snaked through her heart, each beat echoing the gravity of his words. The crowd fell silent, gazes shifting between the man and Maria. Could they face the reality of all that lay ahead? And more so, what awaited them behind the truths they were uncovering? With her pulse racing, Maria grasped the moment. "What happens next?" she asked, voice steady. "That's the journey we embark on together. What truths would unfold? What power would they discover in facing their realities?" The night brimming with possibility held its breath, waiting for answers. In that charged silence, Maria felt the weight of every single gaze in the room. The stranger's challenge echoed in her mind, like a grim drumbeat. Fear crept into her heart, but she fought against it. This was her chance, not just for herself but for everyone. "Facing the reality is what we need," she said, her voice rising with newfound conviction. "It's our stories that will guide us through, no matter how messy or difficult." The crowd remained quiet, still digesting her words. Then, to her surprise, a man near the front stood up, his hands trembling slightly. I've lost so much. My family, my job." He paused, desperation flaring in his eyes. "I thought no one would understand. But I need to share. I need to feel connected again." A murmur of support rippled through the gathering, encouragement nudging him forward. The man took a deep breath, his story spilling out like water from a dam. He spoke of loss, of longing, and it resonated deeply within the room. A few more followed like dominoes, each tale peeling back layers of pain and exposing vulnerability. Maria's own heart raced, not with fear, but with an exquisite sense of belonging. As each person spoke, their words pierced through the isolation that had once enveloped her. They were in this together, compiling an anthology of hope in a world laden with adversity, but the stranger didn't back down. "What happens when the stories run out?" His voice rose, cutting through the emotional wave. "What if you get to the end and it's just empty?" Silence engulfed the crowd again. Maria's hands clenched into fists, wrestling with uncertainty. What if he was right? Deep down, each of them feared that vulnerability might lead to emptiness instead of the connection they desperately sought. "No," she said fiercely, "we are not looking for a tidy ending. Life isn't about tidy endings. It's about the journey and embracing each step we take. Even the difficult ones. When we connect through our stories, we become alive in those moments together." Her words lingered in the air, casting a light that continued to push back the shadows cast by the stranger. More people rose. A woman with tear-streaked cheeks, a man who had buried himself in work to avoid his pain. It felt like they were collectively shedding their burdens that night. Maria felt a tingle at the back of her mind. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. Each revelation, every shared experience felt like stepping stones toward something profound, yet terrifyingly unknown. But as the tales continued to unspool, that feeling of dread crept back at the edges of her resolve. What if the stranger was right? What if their truths uncovered too much, leaving them bare and vulnerable to a world that might not care? Thomas squeezed her shoulder again, his warm presence a grounding reminder that she wasn't alone. "We can face whatever comes next," he whispered, sending a rush of reassurance through her. In that moment, they were more than just individuals sharing pain. They were a collective force, wielding their stories like shields in an unforgiving world. But still, the question loomed: what darkness waited when they shined too bright? As the last stories poured out, Maria realized it wasn't just her journey at stake anymore. It was everyone's. And the weight of that realization sent shivers racing down her spine. "Are we truly ready to face what comes next?" she asked, her voice trembling but resolute, as hope and fear battled within her. Around her, the crowd waited, looking for answers, looking for strength, looking for light amidst the shadows. What lay beyond the journey they had started? Would they find solace or more strife? The night buzzed with anticipation, echoing an unspoken promise of what was to come. Maria stood firm, her heart drumming in her chest as she scanned the faces around her. For a fleeting moment, she wondered if this would all collapse. The stranger's words echoed in her mind, taunting her. What if they shared everything and were still met with silence? But then, another voice broke through her thoughts. A young woman, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, stepped forward. "I've been afraid to speak," she said, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Afraid of judgment. Afraid of being dismissed. But being here, it fills a void I didn't even realize I had." As she spoke, the room seemed to exhale collectively. It was electric, palpable. When she finished, the applause was thunderous, sweeping through individuals like waves crashing on the shore. This was what they needed. Each story acted like a lifeline, pulling them closer, binding them through shared pain. Maria noticed Thomas's breath hitch beside her. She exchanged a glance with him, and she could see hope glimmering in his eyes. It was infectious. The crowd was no longer silent. Others began to rise, one after the other, bringing their truths into the light. One after the other. A teenage boy shared the weight of expectations from parents who didn't seem to see him. An elderly woman spoke of losing her partner after decades of companionship. With each story, Maria felt the emotional weight in the room shift. Suddenly, the stranger laughed, a sharp sound that sliced through the warmth of their confessions. "Is this really what you want?" he challenged. "Laying your souls bare for strangers, exposing your most intimate scars? What next? Where is the end to this madness?" Maria's heart sank, and she felt a surge of anger bubbling up. "It's not madness. It's courage," she shot back, her voice steady. "We're choosing to confront our realities. We refuse to be silenced by fear. And yes, it's risky, but isn't it more terrifying to hide?" The stranger paused, a flicker of something, perhaps uncertainty, crossing his face. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see the effect of her words. "And what about you?" Maria continued, directing her gaze at him. "Why do you feel the need to challenge us? Perhaps you're afraid of your own truth?" The tension in the room shifted. The stranger's eyes darted around, assessing the crowd. He looked momentarily taken back, but quickly hid it behind a facade of disinterest. "I'm not afraid," he said, almost defiantly, but the uncertainty in his voice betrayed him. Maria took a step closer. "Then maybe you should join us. Share your story. Everyone here has something to say. Why do you hide behind others?" The stranger went rigid, and for a moment, it felt like time had stopped. The room was charged with anticipation, a magnetic pulse drawing them together even tighter. Just when Maria thought he would refuse, he hesitated. "Because it hurts," he whispered finally, the words barely escaping his lips. Gasps surged through the crowd. "Hurts to show others your vulnerabilities," he continued, softer now. "I thought strength was to remain unscathed. I thought keeping silent made me powerful." A ripple of understanding flowed through those gathered. The realization hung in the air, a shared humanity. The stories continued, a blend of laughter and tears. Babies cried outside, and the echo of life continued around them. Each voice reached out to connect, weaving narratives that brightened the previous darkness. Maria looked around, the flames of their shared courage sparking anew with each story released. As the chaos of emotion swirled, she suddenly realized that this journey was far from over. "Where do we go when this night ends?" Maria asked herself, nearly whispering, as a shadow of uncertainty swept over her heart. Each story shared felt like a thread woven into something larger. Would they be able to carry this new light forward into the world waiting outside? With that thought lingering like a distant echo, the room quieted, and everything felt impossibly still. In that silence, one question hung in the air, waiting to be answered. Would they dare to step outside, ready to face whatever awaited them among the shadows? With the last echo of shared story still hanging in the air, the warmth of community surrounded Maria like a comforting blanket. She felt empowered, but a nagging concern lingered. What would life look like after this night? The truth she just shared now danced in the open, vibrant and raw, a reflection of her hopes and weaknesses. As the final applause faded, Thomas stepped beside her, his eyes sparkling with encouragement. "You did it, Maria," he said with a soft smile. "You opened doors for yourself and for everyone. This moment is a seed for change." Maria was still riding the high of vulnerability, yet thoughts of tomorrow threatened to cloud this newfound clarity. But what if this feeling of connection fades? What if we all go back to our daily lives, and it all slips away? Her voice trembled slightly as she pressed her fingers to her heart. "No matter what happens next, tonight was a turning point," he replied steadily. "You showed everyone that sharing is strength. You reminded them they're not alone. And that's powerful." His words soothed her like a balm over a fresh wound. Encouraged, she focused on the audience around them. Conversations flowed, laughter bubbled, and the energy that had once felt so oppressive now radiated hope like a sun breaking through after a storm. Just then, the young woman who had once been afraid to speak stepped forward. "I've never felt this alive," she declared, eyes shining. "Let us keep this going. Let us meet regularly. We can support one another, share our journeys beyond tonight." The crowd erupted with enthusiastic agreement. Voices chimed in, excited to continue the connection they had formed. Maria's heart soared as her fears began to dissipate. They were not just a group of strangers anymore, they were a family forged in struggle and understanding. She saw Diego's bright smile in her mind and knew this was the kind of community she wanted for him, a place where love and vulnerability were celebrated. "How about we create a group, a space where we can all share our stories and continue to lift each other?" Maria suggested, her voice strong and determined. "A place to support one another, where everyone can gather and grow." Murmurs of agreement flowed throughout the crowd, and the idea blossomed like wildflowers taking root in a barren field. Thomas nodded approvingly, pride radiating from him. "You're leading them, Maria. You have a gift." A plan formed that night, a new chapter unfurling before them, and there was no turning back. Weeks turned into months, they gathered frequently, sharing laughter, tears, triumphs, and setbacks. Maria found herself buoyed not only by the support of others but also by the strength that blossomed within her. Each step on this journey felt like solid ground gained, healing the bruises of past doubts. Days passed, and she'd find herself and her friends leaning on each other as they faced their individual struggles. When tough days crept in, it was as if she could hear the cheers of encouragement echoing from that first gala. They had transformed lives not because of soaring wealth or fame but through authentic connections. With Diego now beaming with pride for his mother, Maria felt like a new woman. She continued her studies, propelled into the realm of nursing with fiery determination. And as her heart swelled each day, she realized she was, indeed, living the life she envisioned. One evening, as she wrapped up a particularly inspiring meeting with her newfound support system, Thomas approached her. "You've taken this beyond what I ever thought possible, Maria. Your courage is contagious," he said, standing tall with that irresistible confidence. Maria smiled, words caught in her throat as emotion surged. "Thank you for believing in me, Thomas. You saw something in me that I struggled to grasp. Together, we're changing lives." "Let us keep going," he replied, a spark of ambition in his eye. "Let us reach out, inspire more people, and create ripples of kindness." And so, with each step forward, they built a legacy. Their story, a tale of empowerment and transformation, flourished far beyond the walls of that gala. And as their lives intertwined further, Maria knew with all her heart that it wasn't just about her dreams anymore. It was about nourishing every soul that dared to believe, illuminating the path for onward journeys yet to come. In the end, they emerged stronger, exuding a light that had the potential to pierce through any shadow. The path ahead sparkled brightly with promise, and Maria felt an unwavering conviction. They would keep forging ahead, together. Now it's your turn to be a part of this journey. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next inspiring story that could change everything. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this positivity. Comment below with your reactions, your feelings, and how this story has impacted you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. Let us keep building connections and spreading light.